What's up, everyone? Yeah, I've been kind of intrigued by this. This has been going on for a year and a half. This debate that was going to happen between Stryker and Enoch. The two most, I don't know if they're the biggest names, but they're the most out there talking about the Holocaust, claiming, or the two revisionists that are out in the public eye the most, I would say, these days on the internet is them, and they're supposed to have a debate with these two guys. One has expertise in the chemistry, which is an interesting dynamic. The other guy, Matt, is a historian. He's the guy being interviewed about this right here. And well, the story's out there about how it's temporarily canceled. But I think the more people talk about it, the higher the likelihood is they'll give in. One side will give in. Hopefully, Strike and Mike can actually just do it. Or they could do it on another platform as well. Or they could have multiple or different people. But I don't think there's much point in debating whether the Holocaust happened other than like the sport of doing it. I don't feel like it has much benefit because it's kind of ridiculous when you think about it, right? Like, we don't debate whether the Rwandan genocide happened. We don't debate if the Armenian genocide happened. I guess the Turks deny it was genocide, so you could have that discussion. But it is really quite a ridiculous subject. Maybe some people feel there's merit to it. And there's a lot of debate whether it's even worth having the debate with Holocaust deniers because, you're giving them a platform and blah, blah, blah. I think Holocaust denial is so dead. No matter, like, there's no reviving it. Even if they did succeed in getting out there and having a huge platform, for every person that the revisionists brought to their side, they would probably generate 10 opponents or something like that. That's what I think about neo-Nazis. If you put them in the middle of Times Square, like on a stage, trying to spread their message, they might get a couple of recruits. And for each recruit, they would get like 10 to 100 people that want to beat the shit out of them. So people do get paranoid about these guys getting out there and speaking, but I think they're their own worst enemy. Like, the best way to negate these people in some way, they're their own worst enemy. So I'm not saying they should be promoted on Twitter or whatever to young kids and such that might get immersed in this stuff, but there's really no path to victory on their side as I see it. Now, like, if you're like this Matt guy, and first off, these revisionists are being all picky, like, oh, we want to have it on this platform. We don't want to talk to this guy. Dealing with revisionists is like dealing with the mentally ill. It's like dealing with a mentally ill, cracked out, homeless people. And there's a guy that wants to go in there, and this guy said, actually, this kind of convinced me because, yeah, the way I think about these people is how I just described. But it is possible there's a small proportion that just went down the wrong track. They got deluded. Hey, Christian Piccolini was at one point like a neo-Nazi skinhead, right? And he saw the light. Now he does de-radicalization or whatever. But there is a small proportion of these people that could be swayed. And I actually heard this guy, Matt, talking about some of the documents, and he's pretty knowledgeable. I mean, he's at the London school. Well, I don't want to say where he's going, but he said it online. He's at an elite institution getting a master's, I think, in history. And he speaks German, and he goes to the archives and reads. So this guy is like way smarter than any revisionists, and way smarter than any revisionists deserve to talk to. And he's willing to, talk about the evidence and go through the evidence. Now, I know most revisionists aren't going to like him because they're politically committed to this position, so they're going to try to smear him and destroy him. But really, this guy is like Mother Teresa, going to help the needy and the mentally ill and the mentally poor. So maybe it's a fool's errand, I don't know, but he seems knowledgeable and he's willing to go on. So I think if you go on, like bringing Holocaust deniers onto like Tucker Carlson or something, then you are giving them a platform, and they're going to convince the naive and the idiotic. But if you go onto their platforms, then you might be able to reach their people. Although, not very likely. If these people were intelligent and of sound mind, they wouldn't become revisionistic Holocaust deniers to begin with. But, like, everybody goes down the wrong path. Some people get into heroin. It's, heroin is a tough thing to beat, but a lot of people are reclaimed and go on to live productive, normal lives. So if he wants to go and do that, and he has the knowledge base and he's prepared for this debate, he can go do it with other people. But there really is nothing to Holocaust denial, revisionism. It's just basically using negationist tactics that you could use on any event. It's, nitpicking little things and trying to use it to insinuate that the whole event didn't happen. You could do this with any historical event. Most historical events don't have the extensive documentation of the Holocaust, despite the attempts to cover it up, because it was so vast. It took place over such a long period of time, over multiple countries, 22 countries or something, multiple continents. So their basic tactic is to, mock and make fun of every piece of evidence. Like, well, that doesn't prove that the Holocaust happened. That doesn't no piece of single evidence can really comprehensively showcase the Holocaust. It's the same thing almost in a murder, right? Like, I don't know, just look at the OJ case. Okay, they found her blood in his car. It's like, well, that doesn't prove a murder. She could have had a menstrual cycle in his car like a year earlier. That doesn't prove anything. Like, if you use basically, we believe in reasonable doubt that's for our justice system, which doesn't necessarily apply in other places, but reasonable doubt is, there's not exactly what it means. Like, there's not a reasonable doubt to say that this didn't happen. So and then there's unreasonable doubt. That would be, like aliens did it, or I don't know, something else that's completely unreasonable. But like this, it's not a court of law, so it's more likely than not, basically, which is the standard in civil trials, I believe. So what revisionists do is just basically mock every piece of evidence and say, like, yeah, that proves it doesn't happen, and they have no positive case to make as to what actually happened. All they do is mock and try to dismiss everything to propose what did happen. And then all these thousands of pieces of evidence that you could never even go through in your entire life come together to paint a picture, right? Like, you look at a TV, how many pixels are on a TV now? What, millions? I don't know. You look at one pixel, it's like, okay, that's nothing. You look at pixels together, it's, a football game, whatever, a picture. So they make ridiculous assertions that you can't trust any eyewitness accounts. That's ridiculous. Even in a court case, with one murder, you're taking, that's police 101. What's the first thing you do? You talk to suspects, you talk to witnesses. That is maybe not the most important piece of evidence as far as proving guilt or innocence. Forensics might be more important, but it's the most important aspect of establishing what happened. So revisionists to say like, nope, no eyewitnesses, it's like, who, that differs from every other event in history, every investigation that's ever been done. So, but they have to do this to dismiss evidence, so that's why they say it. They dismiss all of the prisoners. They dismiss everyone in the SS, claiming that everything's been coerced. You can't trust anything any SS officers said. They were all coerced. What they write in the diary. Oh, well, they said liquidate. It doesn't say kill, or, well, just because they wrote that they were doing it doesn't mean that's not proof that they actually followed through. So it's just every piece of evidence, dismiss, wave off. That's all it is. So you're talking about reasonable doubt, but that's completely unreasonable. It doesn't apply to any other event. Like they're not doing that to say the Holodomor. You know, they're not saying, nope, can't take those diary entries, can't listen to those people. They're unreliable, they could be lying. Like, that doesn't happen in any other event. So that's the eyewitness accounts, you have the documents. Most other historical events don't have such comprehensive, so many pieces of evidence that come together to, like I'm saying, make a high definition picture, because there's so many pixels. You know, like, what do we use for evidence for other historical events? Diaries, historical documents, and there's all that and more. So basically what I'm saying is revisionists are politically motivated and committed to denying the event based on their ideology, and I guess if they were to own up to it, they feel like it would be too damaging to a National Socialist worldview, so they have to claim that it didn't happen. The Nazis were a bunch of Boy Scouts, and this is what the Institute for Historical Review says, you know. Hitler was a peace-loving man, and he just wanted peace with the British and his neighbors, and then, you know, he proceeded to invade 11 countries or 22 countries or whatever because, you know, self-defense. So I don't know, the whole thing's ridiculous, but I think these debates can be interesting and potentially could be productive. This Matt guy sort of convinced me a little bit of that. There's nothing to fear with Holocaust revisionists. If anything, they make people more aware of the Holocaust, and I actually think they should teach about it. They should teach the public more about it in school and in the Holocaust museums, because I think people would be absolutely fucking outraged by it, to learn that, like, what? There's people that are actually claiming this didn't happen, or like the Jews made it up, and it would not only spread awareness, but make people more emotional about the whole event, because that's you know, the National Socialist tactic, which is always claimed to be the victim. Claim, you know, you're just striving for national determination and self-defense, and now these people have claimed that you know, you committed the most gross genocide of all time. So of course they would lie about it, because they lied about everything beforehand, claiming to be the victim the whole time. I'm trying to think if there's anything else like insightful I can say. Yeah, I don't know. Watch this video with Matthew Cockerill. Maybe not the best name to avoid insults, but you know, you got to own who you are. Oh yeah, I guess it got rated because it's 34 upvotes, 65 downvotes. But yeah, another tactic revisionists use is they try to history changes over time. Like I think the numbers that they hold Stalin responsible for have dropped from like 20 million to 12 million. Those aren't the exact numbers, but that's the historical consensus. So they try to use any change. Some of the camps, the numbers have changed. So they try to use any change as, the Holocaust story is crumbling. They're giving ground. Like, we're going to destroy this thing. There's changes made in other historical events. Or the Soviets put up a plaque saying 4 million were killed at Auschwitz as, like some evidence that they've lied about the numbers. But historians have pretty much been solid on the approximate numbers killed at these camps. Okay, the communists inflated it to inflate their victimhood, but that's always been known. So, like, all the arguments they've made have been debunked 1,000 times, but for people that are committed to it, they just keep making the same arguments. You debunk it, they move on to something else. That's, the gish gallop that they do. So anyone who is a revisionist, I think, is probably most likely they're too damaged to be saved. Otherwise, they wouldn't be revisionists to begin with. But maybe this Matt guy can redeem a small number of them, and I wish him luck. I consider myself somewhat well-read on the Holocaust. Like, compared to the average person, I'm probably in the top 5% of knowledge just based on my amateur reading. But this guy is kind of the real deal. He graduate school for German history and can read German and goes to the archives. I mean, that's pretty rare. And he's willing to talk to the scum of the earth, these crazy revisionists like Stryker and Enoch. This guy's a unicorn. But I guess the revisionists won't like him because he can make fools of their arguments. Although they claim... yeah, I forgot to mention, anytime you have a debate, no matter how much revisionists get destroyed, they'll always claim victory. They'll always claim, he did... Even if, like, they'll avoid the 99% of the time where they're embarrassed and say, he didn't bring any evidence up for this, therefore he's conceding that that's a lie. Or just ridiculously dishonest argumentation. He didn't bring up any of the testimony by the Jews, so therefore he's conceding that, all the Jews lied about what they saw, Sonderkommando and whatnot. But they do this with the Irving trial. They claim, like, Irving actually won the trial, and then they cherry pick certain things the judge said to give that impression, when if you read the determination by the judge, he says Irving is a proven liar who repeatedly lied about what the source documents and evidence said in order to push his own narrative. It's clear as day. Anyone who's objective can see it, but people that are politically invested in revisionism, they ignore all that. But hopefully this debate discussion happens. Revisionism is pretty much dead. It's like has a small little cult following. And that's it. Hopefully this debate happens. Good luck to Matt.